Happy Friday, everybody, and what a Friday it is. This is the reason we live here in Minnesota. We suffer through 7 to 8 months of some pretty odd weather for stuff like this. It is 78 degrees, breezy, sunny. It's beautiful here, and this is the Ask a Painter show. I'm Nick Slavic. I'm the host of Ask a Painter Live. I'm also the proprietor of the Nick Slavic Painting and Restoration Company, based out of Minnesota here. I use my 2 decades of experience as a craftsman and an entrepreneur to answer any questions people have. If I don't have the answers for this, you can suggest a topic. And like I said, if I don't have the answers for this, you can be attached to the largest group of professional craftspeople, entrepreneurs, paint business owners in the world through this forum, and we can get the answers for you. So today's going to be a really interesting show. We have some stuff from Purdy to talk about. We have some stuff from Sherwin to talk about. Chris Shank, everybody loves Chris Shank, the education guy from the PCA, the Paint Contractors Association, will be on for the contractor question of the week. We're going to be talking about contracts, warranties, and I'm going to share with you my one-page simple solution that almost solves every one of these issues, and we're going to talk about that with Chris Shank. So today, first off, I want to thank Purdy for allowing me to try out some of the really cool things here. We are going to be talking about the Chinex Elite brush. So I know you guys have seen these things around here, introduced earlier this year, available only through Sherwin-Williams, which is really cool. They come 6 different options here. So we have some 3-inch versions. You can see we have some straight cut, some thicker versions like this, 3-inch straight cut, little thinner version here, and we also have the 3-inch angled, also in a little bit thinner version there. And then we have some 2.5-inch options as well. So with the beaver tail, like that, the longer handle, like that stuff there, and then the angled as well too. So very important is that what you're going to notice about Chinex bristles is that they are extra stiff. And oh, Jamie Hansen, thanks for watching. Let us know what your favorite use is, and if you have a favorite too, I'm going to share my favorite in a little bit here. But what you're going to notice about these brushes is they look like those old style hog bristle brushes, but they are absolutely not that. They are extra stiff. They're great for that, and I'm going to actually show you what I use these for, my favorite uses in a bit here. So they're Chinex filaments from DuPont. Chinex is an alternative to those old natural hog bristle brushes. The difference between the Chinex and the Chinex Elite, so everybody knows that there are currently Chinexes out there. These are the Chinex Elite, introduced earlier this year, and the difference is that these are going to be pre-flagged. So let me show you what we're talking about here. For those of you brush geeks like me, you understand what flagging is, but the tips, let's see if I can get this close enough. The tips of these bristles are pre-flagged, and one of the biggest benefits is they will pick up more paint, they will give you more even coverage, and they're more productive too, which is a very big thing, especially when you're dealing with porous and rough surfaces like that. So the filaments are actually called SRT. It's a way to describe them. Solid, round, and tapered. They're stronger than the natural hog bristle brush, and they don't absorb moisture. So for anybody who's ever taken the traditional hog bristle brush, looks like this, but actually made from real hog bristles, sometimes they're called China bristles, things like that. If you've ever tried to use like a water-based paint or primer with it, you get a little ways into the project and they just start puffing up and they get clumpy and they start kind of, deforming and things like that. That's because those bristles actually absorb the moisture. They're great for oil-based products and things like that, but not so great for water-based stuff. These things, you get the benefits of those kind of natural bristles, the pre-flagged ends, but they don't absorb those things, so they'll stay nice and crisp and they'll stay nice and extra stiff, especially when you're doing stuff like this. It's very, very useful. So they will also pick up and hold more paint too, which is a great thing. So for those of you who've been doing porous surfaces like this, standard brushes like that, you don't get very far. These things hold a ton of paint, and especially in one of my favorite ones, which is the extra thick, the 3-inch one here. There is a ton of capacity in these things, and it does a great job on things like this. So thanks everybody for watching. We're going to go through some things from Purdy, things from Sherwin here. We're going to get to the PCA contractor question of the week, and then anytime you guys want to ask a question, type it in down below. I'll get to it once I get through a few things here. If you got a topic suggestion, if you want to just describe a job site to me, whatever you need, we are here for you. So All right, so very important. All of the Purdy stuff is handcrafted in Portland, Oregon. And for those of you who've been following the social media feed, you saw me at the factory with a PCA event there. We got to tour the whole thing. We got to see the actual people who make these brushes. So you guys all know that they come with the little yellow stickers here, and they're signed by the person who actually makes them. And when I was going through my set of Chinex Elite, I noticed that they were signed by 6 different people, which is really cool. So it's just a nice little thing when you open these things up before you wash them too many times and the stickers wear off. It's really cool to see that somebody took the time to make this brush with a lot of handwork and also label it like that. And I got the pleasure of actually seeing some of these people who've been there for decades and decades, how they actually make these brushes. And it's super impressive. If you ever get a chance, see if you can't light up a factory visit there like that. So for those of you who have used the Chinex or the Chinex Elite, especially the Chinex Elite, you know that these things wash up insanely well. So after a day of painting, multiple days of painting, you get that under some clean water, a rinse or two, and those things come amazingly clean. And those of you who use them can back that stuff up. And these brushes specifically were introduced to deal with heavy-bodied paints, low VOC paints. For those of you who have used like the eco-friendly interior paints especially, you notice that they're a little bit thicker. They're a little more viscous like that. The extra stiffness of the brush, in my experience, has been really helpful in getting an even spread rate, nice even finishes on all that stuff here. Let me catch up with a lot of... Adam, best brush for cutting in on a textured wall or cutting in on heavily bodied paints. Cuts a super sharp line when cutting along another smooth surface. My point exactly. You know from experience, these things are phenomenal at that, and I'm actually going to show you a little bit of how I like to use them. So my favorite uses for these brushes, they do, like you mentioned and I mentioned too, insanely well for low VOC or heavy-bodied interior paints. They do fine there. They do exceptionally well when you're doing with exterior stuff. So we have some stucco here, and an old piece. This is probably about a 120-year-old piece of wood from a farm building. And I made a little demo here because my 2 favorite uses, minus the interior, is historic restorations, when you have some very chopped up wood, porous wood, things like that, and when you have stucco like this. And my go-to for a lot of this stuff is Sherwin Super Paint. It's actually in my exterior SOP. We have converted our exterior SOP to be much more streamlined this year, and we have been using a ton of super paint. And we use mainly flat. We use a little bit of low luster too. It's beautiful shine on that stuff. And it's formulated with advanced resin technology, which means you get a lot of adhesion, good adhesion. You get hide, coverage, and durability, which obviously we need in our exterior paint, and color retention. And a little pro tip for you here, I have a lot of data points, and everybody knows I like experiments. I have a lot of data points to suggest that if you put a little bit of shine in your exterior paint, or speck a paint with a little bit of shine, darker colors will actually wear better. So when we have, for exteriors like this, when we just have white farm buildings, things like that, or barns, I'll usually spec a flat paint. It really does best in hiding a lot of the, you're dealing with 120, 150 years of paint, divots, holes, things like that. It really makes the structure come together and look well. It doesn't show those deviations. But when we do newer houses with LP Smart Side or James Hardy siding, things like that, we will definitely spec a low luster paint if we're using a darker color, or sometimes, with that newer siding when there's not a lot of deviations. I really like the low luster. Satin's a really good one too. Low luster is just a beautiful, sophisticated shine. And so, like I said, I have a lot of data points to suggest that when we're doing, a plum accent gable, or we're doing very, very deep black front doors, things like that, I go step up the shine a little bit, and I've seen some awesome results with color retention. The paint does very well with it anyway, but I know from experience with that little bit of shine to it, it seems like the resin, that shine, locks the color in. That's my feeling. I'd be happy to have that backed up by a paint scientist if we have any watching there. So, all right, so thanks everybody for watching here. So the Sherwin Super Paint, I got a little thing here. We're going to go through a demo. I grabbed a can out of our shop here. It resists frost, peeling, blistering, cracking, fading, which is all things we want in our exterior paint. And one really cool thing about it is you can put it on down to 35 degrees, which in Minnesota comes very quickly in the spring and the fall. So it's always nice to have that little buffer there of that. So I thought I would show you guys of my Chinex Elite. I obviously have some favorites, my go-to. And for those of you who watch long enough, you know that I've always been a fan of straight cut. Now, I realize that I might be biased because I grew up with straight cut brushes, but I used angled all the times, hoping that maybe I'll find the magic combination of it. But honestly, I'm still a straight cut guy, and for better or for worse. So of my go-tos, in my company, we basically have two sizes of brushes. We have 3-inch brushes, and I always spec the thicker versions like these for exterior stuff, and we have 2.5-inch versions for interior. And for my exterior brushes, I like the beaver tail handle. You know, it just seems like it gives you a little more to work with, and especially because you're going to do tens of thousands of strokes a day, having a little a larger handle like that, less hand fatigue. And this one, the Chinex Elite Swan, it's just I don't know, it's a great brush, and I particularly love the beaver tail for that. But when we go inside for the trim brushing, this one's the bow, like this. I always like the longer straight cut handles on mine. I find that when I'm cutting on interior trim or on exterior trim like that, sometimes I like to sneak up towards the end of the brush like this, and you can cut, and this will actually give you another 4 or 5 inches one way, 4 or 5 inches one-way cutting, and that adds up to about an extra foot of cutting that you can do. Exterior also, when you're up on a 32-foot or a 40-foot extension ladder painting some window trim, something like this, it's always nice to be able to have that little extra reach like this, you know, versus this. So, and another tip that I found too, especially when you're working on rough surfaces like this, a lot of people like to creep up on the brush like this and get really tight and pull the bristles tight. With the extra stiff bristles on this, and you use some super paint too, if you back your hand off on the brush a little bit like this, give it about a 45-degree angle when you're trying to cut, and don't put a lot of pressure, just enough pressure to make those flagged ends come into contact with stuff. They'll actually conform. You can see them sort of in and out of the little pores and stuff there. The bristles will actually do the work for you, and if you couple it with a really good paint like super paint, you're going to get the best of both worlds there. When people mash it and things like this, you're not getting the benefits of all these flagged bristles. When you back it up like this and just let the bristles do the work for you like that, that's when all the benefits come. So I just thought I'd do, I mean, I like painting anyway. I thought I would just give you a demo of this sort of thing. So, and as soon as we're done with this, we're gonna get Chris Shank on the line here. Thanks for being patient, Chris Shank. And we're gonna go live with Chris, and we're gonna talk about contracts and warranties, and I'm gonna show you my one-page solution to all that stuff. So, and the reason I like these brushes for the exterior rough surfaces is the rough surface, the pores and the open spots and the deviations, the extra stiff bristles really do a good job of getting inside there. So with minimal effort, you know, you can see with a big exterior brush and a nice heavy-bodied paint, you barely have to apply any pressure, and this stuff just fills like a dream. And if you get really nice heavy bodied paint like that, you can even fill nail and screw holes too, so which is a nice benefit. So do a little stucco too. So yesterday we finished up a super cool project. We were actually on Lake Minnetonka on an island called Gale Island, and it's a privately owned island. It's almost like a little compound. They have a whole bunch of historic buildings on there. Originally there was buildings on there from the 1850s, which is super cool. So, you know, for those of you who know me, old stuff, history, lakes, outdoors, wilderness, things like that, it's just a wonderful thing. And we got out there. It was my third trip out there. I actually went out there to do a little prep work. I went out there for a separate site visit to site verify everything. And then yesterday I took 3 of my craftspeople with me, and we knocked it out yesterday. So we had 2 outbuildings to do. We had a historic little cabin at the point of this island here. It was just a wonderful project, and a beautiful day. Client met us out there, took us out in their boat. We had all our gear, sprayers, coatings, everything else, and it was actually very efficient. In about 8 or 9 hours, we had got all our work done. I reglazed a bunch of old historic metal windows there, and it was an absolutely wonderful day. And I know the young craftspeople in my company too, they like a good They like a good challenge. They like a good adventure. So we love doing stuff like that. But yeah, so you can see minimal effort. You're barely pressing with your hand. This stuff covers so well. It's just such a dream to work with when you got, especially with the exterior surfaces. You go extra stiff, and it's amazing what you can do. So there's a lot of really good brushes out there. If you pick a brush that's a very good brush, but just maybe made for interior enameling, where it's got very, very fine bristles and they got a little more give to them, this takes infinitely longer than when you do that. So you couple extra stiff with a good exterior coating like that, and it's a dream to work with. So, all right, so let's fire it up with Chris Shank here. Let's see who we got here. Love the brush tips. Oh, Dustin, you're the man. Thank you. Heike, I'm a lot like you. I love working on the islands or on the lake here in the oh, absolutely. It's such a dream, and it adds I mean, this is awesome. This is fun. All of this is fun to do, but when you can couple it with an adventure like that, it's a lot of fun. So, Sonia, thanks for sharing. Would this help fill cinder blocks that has never been painted? Absolutely. So in the areas that you have to brush, use one of these brushes. Certainly you can use a spray and back brush, a spray and back roll, things like that too. But this brush, there's not many better brushes on the face of this planet for rough woodwork, for stucco like that, than brushes like that. So, Gerardo, thanks for watching, man. Kirk, you like old buildings. It's nonstop in the UK. And Kirk, I should say too that with respect to my people in Europe and the UK, what we call old is 100 to 150, and that's just like baby starter, new construction for you guys. And that's always fun to. It's always fun to talk that. There's a painter from the UK in northern Minnesota, a transplant, Chris Mole, who's an awesome friend of mine, and he talks about 400 or 500 year old buildings that he works on. I just love that stuff. So, also, where can you get these brushes? Perfect segue. I am going to put a promo code in this in the links of this video as soon as I'm done, and then you can get them at Sherwin-Williams. You can order online, and the promo code that I'm going to have up there will actually have allow you to get 50% off these things here. So as soon as I'm done with the video here, that will be up there, and you guys can click on that link and go get some brushes. So all right, let's go with Chris Shank here. See if we can fire him up and go do a live. Oh, there's the link right there. Purdy, thank you so much. You guys are awesome, and thanks for following along. And I'll be answering questions about all this stuff as we get through the show here too. So we're going to go on to contracts. We're going to also go to warranties, and but anything you guys want to talk about, we're here, including this stuff and these brushes. So let's see if we can get Chris Shank up here. I said before, guys, the ways to get notifications from my page are to go to the Ask a Painter Live Facebook page and like the page and follow it, and you'll get an instant notification when I go live. And here is Chris Shank, the man. You hear me, Chris? You hear me all right? I can see you talking. I can't hear you. I can hear you now.
Give it a second. Okay, I think we made it.
Awesome, man. How are you?
I'm doing good. Since the last hour or so, I'm still here. That's good news.
Same with me, still here as well. So good to see that you are still here as well. So,
yep. Great demonstration of the brushes and the paint. I love seeing that stuff. I put on a comment, so satisfying. And let me ask you a quick question before I get to my other question. Is that hard to do, to paint in front of all these painters? Because, you know, do you feel like people are going to be criticizing your brush stroke or whatever, like, or is it just so second nature?
Yeah,
you don't care?
Honestly, Chris,
what is it?
This is year 27 for me, and I wish there was a way to quantify the number of brush strokes I've taken in my life, but it is, if there is anything that's muscle memory for me, it's that. It's second nature. I could be, you know, doing math in my head, and I would end up just doing that like a robot. So. So this
awesome.
is Chris Shank,
Love
the education guy from the PDCA. Everybody knows and loves Chris, poet, philosopher, warrior, education guy, and he is here with the PCA contractor question of the week.
Okay, here we go. Question is, what are some of the key items in your contracts that both protect you as a contractor and make you more profitable? And so I'm interested too in your comment about warranties. Like, what is your warranty if you have one? What does that look like? And how do you put limitation and exclusions in that warranty? We had a webinar recently with Randy
Yep.
Fornoff, and he gave examples of what he uses. So I know you're going to possibly give an example of what your contract looks like. I'm really excited
Yeah,
to see that,
so
man.
my solution is what we call the sign-off sheet, which is a hybrid sort of version of it's got warranty information, it's got all this other stuff, but I waffle between a lot of things, between a pure legal contract and more of like handshake agreements. I'm in full understanding that I do not want to do business like my father's generation of painters, where it's like, yeah, I'll do this, and the estimate is vague. There's no contract. There's no nothing like that. That's not great either. But I also know painters who have a 17-page contract, which doesn't interest me either, because that just in its
Yeah.
size and scope is, if I was a client and I got a 17-page contract to paint a bedroom, I'd be like, what are you trying to protect
Intimidating.
yourself from here? Why this
Right.
seems weird. So, but there has to be a middle ground though, because this is
Yeah.
business and not all business is done on a handshake agreement. So my sign-off sheet is basically a one page item that does interior trim and cabinets. It does staining and varnishing, because they get a lot of questions, and all my exteriors. And basically how I built this sheet is
Wow.
27 years, every major question that I get over and over and over again, I put on here, not in question form, but an answer. So this is basically a 2.5 decade FAQ sheet condensed down. So when somebody says, is paint included?
Wow.
People always ask that. Is it 2 coats? Do you offer a warranty? All that sort of thing is on there. And basically I list people. I mean, even when it comes down to the deck section, I just say, this is what you're going to have to do to maintain this deck. So basically any question that any contract or any client could ask me is basically in writing on the back here. And it also states some promises to them too, which is, we clean. That's one of the big value adders that I give, is that we're vacuuming, we're sweeping, we're dusting
Right.
people's houses. And I explicitly stated in there that we do that. So there's a way to sort of CYA cover yourself with one of these things, but there's
Yep.
also one of these things to add value to the client, because I don't want it to be a list of, we don't do this, we don't do this, this isn't covered, So it's
Right.
also, it's a little bit of, here's
Yeah.
my experience, and here's a bunch of things that I do differently than other painters, including color consults and things like that.
Nice. Okay, let me ask you, would you mind sharing about a warranty? Do you offer warranties? If
Yes.
so,
So
what?
my warranty is, I have not found a way to have a stated explicit warranty that works. Basically, what I do is building trust and maintaining trust. The first core value in my company will preclude almost all warranty issues. So once every year and a half, once every 2 years, we get something that goes wrong on a job site, and it's not normally human error. It's well, I'll give you an example. The last one we did, a house that the homeowner completely resided themselves, all new siding. We used top of the line paint from Sherwin. We applied all the paint. Everything was the specs, temp right, application, a wet mill thickness, and in 1 year the whole thing faded. And it wasn't like, well, it faded a little. It all faded like that. And my warranty is, I'm in New Prague, my hometown. I'm not leaving, so I'm going to take care of you. And I went back and I advocated for them, and Sherwin was a great partner on it. And we repainted the entire house for them because of that. And it's a fluke thing, and it's been a bunch
Wow.
of years now. It hasn't happened again. So it was just one of those weird, like every year and a half, you run into something outlierish, and you just take care of it. Now,
So it's kind of case by
yeah,
case for
and
you. I mean,
what I
you leave
Yeah,
it to your
so
discretion.
back to the sign off sheet and the contracts. What I want is a simple thing that somebody can sign off of, that's an explicit warranty.
Right.
But the problem with this stuff, like
Yeah.
when I restore uh, we restored a 110-year-old cabin on this island that's 5 feet from water in Minnesota. If I warranted that cabin, I would be warranting 140 years of sinful things done to it by other painters. And at some point, it's like, listen,
Right.
all I can do is when I'm giving the estimate and the client says, well, Nick, do you warranty your work? I said, yes. You will always be able to get a hold of me. I've been a painter for 27 years. I'm not going to stop being a painter.
Nice.
You
Nice.
will always get a hold of me here. And basically, you either trust me or not. And all the trust that I've tried to build up to that point precludes any sort of contract. And really, if you have tight processes and systems and you have good communication,
honestly, people don't get outlandish. If 9 years from now that cabin starts peeling a little and that client calls me, they're not going to be saying, "Hey, I don't, your work is horrible. Why don't you warranty this?" They would have understood from my sign-off sheet that you need to do some maintenance, and there's a general scope of work that, you can't just let it go 20 years. So
Right. Right. I like how you phrase that as a, I mean, everybody does it
yeah,
differently. I love it. But you phrase it as a sign-off sheet that basically is telling them, I've communicated this to you. This is your evidence and signature that you've read it and that you understand it and that you're asking me questions. And then it kind of leaves it to you guys to trust each other. So you're really kind of, while you have somewhat of a contract or just proof that they saw and read, you're really leaving it to you guys to build a relationship. That's interesting. It probably does reduce fear and encourage the trust building on their side,
it
like
it
you
does.
mentioned.
and
That's
and
very
one of the
interesting.
big, it's this whole chain of trust thing, from the first time somebody sees my website or hears about me, to when they get into contact, to when I show up at their house to do an estimate, to when we do the work. If you don't give them any reason to not trust you, if a logo looks weird or you say something different than you state somewhere, immediately a little flag goes off and the chain of trust is broken, and the whole process is now open for interesting things from them. So I tightly control,
Yeah.
basically, when I do the estimate, everything on here line by line, I basically present to them verbally during the estimate. And when for our interior process, so
Mm,
they've heard it. All their questions are answered before they even ask them. When they get the estimate,
mm,
everything I said is stated on the backside. Everything is consistent, and that's a huge thing. If you state something different than
right.
there, immediately the client's like, "I've heard this before." There's contractors that'll take a down payment and never
Right.
show up again.
Wow. Yeah. That's good. Very creative
Yeah.
way of going about
Well,
that, Nick.
absolutely.
Thanks
And
for
and for
sharing.
now it works, but this is evolving. We're on version 9 of this right now, and on my to-do list are 3 more
Wow.
additions to this. So it's sort of like it's
Oh,
always
wow.
evolving. But yeah. So what else is new and
Very
exciting
cool.
at the PCA, Chris Shank?
Well, actually, something really new is we just made some decisions about the expo and who's going to be
Yes.
presenting at the expo. I've got mostly a firm list. It may or may not involve you. It does. Um, who doesn't want to see
Me.
Nick Slavik? But we're pretty excited about seeing this lineup almost crystallize, and we're going to be making some
Yes.
calls shortly. And but the big deal about expo this coming year in February is going to be workshops. We're going to have like a few serious big workshops. We're going to, I mean, the whole theme of the expo is kind of a special edition of expo is workshops. Now, not everybody's going to be doing a workshop, but we'll have several big ones that people can get involved with, where we have a master plan you build during the
Wow.
2-session workshop. And you really are going to go home with plans. And we're encouraging all of our presenters to really think about the content and the plan that you're giving people to take back with them. So excited about that. Excited about some of our opening presentations, what we're going to be doing, something very similar to what we call, TED Talks. If you
Yes.
heard of TED
Yes.
Talks, we're going to do. So we're experimenting with, you're doing some human experiments over there, and we're doing some here at PCA. And hopefully by the end, nobody gets hurt and everybody's
And
really happy.
all in the
So
spirit of
excited
constant
about that stuff.
improvement, which I am totally inspired by you guys, because I can do it easily in my organization. You guys are doing it industry wide, starting with you guys, and constant improvement is one of the most beautiful things on the planet.
Yeah, sure is. We're really excited also about the
Yes.
Trade Best Practice Series, and that is out already. It's been out for a while, but it's going to be gaining more traction too. We're building some stuff around it, instructional materials. So excited about that. But anyway, excited always to be on Ask a Painter. Thanks for
Hey,
having me,
you're
Nick.
not getting out of here without dropping some poetry, quote. Give us something. Give us some high level thing before you leave. You got anything top of mind?
I got something top of mind, okay? And this is something I always like. I love this kind of stuff for entrepreneurs in particular, okay? Because the entrepreneurial spirit is one of enterprise and pushing forward and fighting. But there is a poet, D.H. Lawrence, who said, there are some times in our lives where we get into the forest again and we shiver with cold and fright, and things happen to us so that we don't hardly recognize ourselves. But cool unlying life will come rushing in, and that's a little bit of it. But really what the beautiful thing is, man, sometimes business owners getting out there in the forest, out in the wild, and you're doing things nobody could have ever dreamed. This new
Yep.
stuff we're talking about, it's crazy, right? And sometimes we are shivering with cold and fright. We're not sure if we made the right choice, but you know what? You know what that feels like when you feel that cool, unlying life, the truth, authentic life, something true to who you are comes rushing in. And I see it all over
Thank you.
everything you do, every risk you take, Nick. I think people, let me mention this too. I loved watching your demonstration with the brush and the paint because we know you're not selling for Purdy. You're not a shill. The cool thing is like you come across with so much authenticity and you're very believable. And I know you would not say a word about a product that you don't really stand behind. And that's refreshing, man. And I think that's why your followers are growing all the time. And so I appreciate being connected with people like you, and that inspires us to keep trying new things. So we're all going to jump into the forest together, try some new things, get a little scared from time to time, but we're going to feel that cool life rushing in
Dude,
all together,
I
right?
love that. Drop the mic. Have a good weekend. We love Chris Shank. You never disappoint, man. Take it easy.
All right. Have a good one.
All right, everybody. Let's go through and see what questions and comments, and then we're gonna break because on my schedule, on my Google Calendar, is the second this show gets over, it's family time for me every Friday. So, let's see, Farah, where can I get those brushes? Okay, Purdy got the link there. Thank you so much, Purdy, for catching up on that. I forgot to put it in the show notes. I will put it in after this. Joey, hello from Pennsylvania. Kirk, Purdy, will you bring them to the UK? Ooh, nice. Heike, you rock, thank you. Paul Dibdahl, love Paul Dibdahl. If you guys don't follow Paul, definitely get him. Sonia, can't spray the cinder block. We replaced a 50-year-old furnace, and the new smaller one left exposed block on both sides. It has to be rolled or brushed. Yeah, this is it's great. The extra stiff bristles will especially do a nice job for you on the first coat. A really cool product. You might want to check out through Sherwin-Williams. They have this. I forget the technical name of it. If Sherwin is watching here too, you can plug it in down below, or I can look it up for you offline if you remind me. But it's a primer and filler and finish all in one, and I did a basement in it. It's basically a one coating process, 2 coats that will, the first coat will fill and even out the blocks, condition the blocks. It plays well with the alkalinity of masonry, and the second coat will skim it all over, fill in a lot of the pores, and give you that beautiful kind of low lustery finish too. But it is a masonry specific product, and you can contact your local Sherwin-Williams or contact me offline and I can get you a specific name. Spiros, thank you so much for watching. Alex Marchuk, thanks much. Always good to see you watching. Ryan, hello, only used the paint once, been using Resilience. What's your opinion between one over another? Different features. So Super Paint is an awesome, versatile paint for everything exterior. Resilience has that added resistance to moisture, rain, and things like that a little bit earlier than some other paints. One super sneaky use of Resilience that I found is that when a lot of other paints are hard to find in quartz, Resilience will come in quartz. So if you're only doing a front door or a garage door, you have a quart. But I've used Resilience as a super sneaky paint for enameling service doors, front doors, screen doors, any metal sort of door that needs a beautiful finish. In the versions that are not flat, either a satin, things like that, they have such a beautiful finish. And when you pair it with a really soft bristle, like maybe a Purdy Nylox, which has got that finer bristle like that, you get an amazing finish with that stuff. It brushes out beautiful, no brush marks, no lap marks, things like that. So one of my super sneaky uses for that is that it's just got a beautiful finish, and when you're hand finishing, very conducive to that. So Stephen, thank you for watching. Borders, Phil Klein, my good friend from Iowa. Good to see you, sir. John Spencer. Heike, have to run. Finish watching later. Sounds good. Alicia from New Prague here. Thanks for watching. Oh, good buddy Christian Militello. Thank you for watching. Let's see. Jose, thanks for watching. Oh, Tina. Craftsperson Tina, thanks for watching. She's got the day off today because my people are on a 4-day work week. Scotty Frayne, great show. Thank you much, man. Let's see here. What have we got for other questions? Okay, that's about it, guys. So, again, Thank you much for Purdy for getting these things out there. For pro painters, we're always looking for what's next, what's better, what's going to help us. And when we can get better quality out of a tool, that's awesome. When we can get better production out of a tool, that's great. When we can get quality and production, that's an amazing thing. So check these out. Promo code will be posted, is posted by Purdy. I will post it in the show notes here for you. That code will get you 50% off these brushes. They are only available at Sherwin-Williams. And just let me know how you like them. They're in my arsenal here. We have 7 work vehicles right behind me here, and you pop those open, you're going to find a lot of this sort of stuff in all my people's totes as standard gear. So thanks everybody. Have an awesome weekend. And let's make sure. See if we got any. Brian Wright, thanks so much. All right. Well, thanks much everybody. Have a good weekend. Family time for me, and we'll talk to you next week.